Hello. So today we are going to talk about the law of cosines. And the law of cosines is a way to use trig if the triangle is not a right triangle. So everything that we've done so far, sine, cosine, tangent, solving right triangles, everything has been right triangle trig. Today we're just going to look at a way we could find a side length of a triangle if it's not a right triangle, and a way that we can use law of cosines in order to find a angle measure if it's not a right triangle. So basically, if you have information that's given to you, if it's side angle side or side side side, like it says down here, you would use the law of cosines. As we are just getting an introduction to this, like on a test or a quiz or something, I would tell you and just say, use the law of cosines to find a specific side or a specific angle. So right now I'm not too worried about having you guys memorize when to use the law of sines and when to use the law of cosines. But as you do it again in Algebra 2, there's going to be a little more to it, so just be aware of that. Okay, so I have some basic steps to help you with it. And all that the law of cosines is a formula that helps you to find a side length or an angle measure. So as we look over here, you can use the law of cosines, and basically it looks a lot like the Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And then it's got some extra stuff subtracted on the end of it. Okay, so these formulas will be given to you. You just have to know which of those three you need to use. And in order to know which of the three you need to use, you have to look at what it's asking you to find. Okay, so in this example, it says use the law of cosines to find A. Well, logically speaking, if I want to find A, I want to pick the equation that has A all by itself already. Okay, so the steps that you need to do are written down here. Step 1, write down what you know. So look at the diagram and just write down the information that you know. So I know, based on my diagram, I'm going to zoom in here, the side length is always across from the angle. So for instance, angle A and angle A, those are across from each other or opposite of each other. Angle B and side B are across from each other. And then angle C and side C. So if we were going to label those, 26 would be C, 23 would be B, and we always label side lengths with the lowercase, and we label angle measures with the uppercase, just so we can remember that. So the first thing that I do is I'm like, okay, what do I know? Well, I know that angle A is 114 degrees. Okay, I know that side length B is 23, and I know that side length C is 26. Okay, so that's basically anything that we know. We're trying to find A. We know certain information. Okay, so then I'm looking and I'm like, all right, step 2. Write down which law of cosines formula from above you will use. Well, I have highlighted in gray up there that I'm finding side A, so I'm going to use that top formula. So I'm going to write that down so that I have the formula and I can just directly substitute in there. So I'm going to use a squared equals b squared plus c squared minus 2 times b times c times the cosine of A. Remember, capital letters are angles, lowercase letters are sides. Okay, so then I'm like, all right, let's see what I know. I know that angle A is 114 degrees. So I'm going to substitute in 114 for A, not for cosine, because I'm going to have the, remember, the angle is always attached to the trig function. So I'm going to have the cosine of 114 there. And then I also know that, let's see here, 23 is B. So anywhere I see a B, I can put a 23 in there. And then anywhere that I see the letter C, I can take that out and I can put 26 in its place. And as you can see, the only thing I'm going to be left with is a squared, which is on the left side all by itself. So the next step, all we need to do is we just need to substitute in. Okay, so a squared I don't know anything about. Instead of b, I'm going to put 23. So I'm going to have 23 squared plus, and instead of c, I'm going to put 26. So I'm going to have 26 squared minus 2 times b, which is 23, times c, which is 26, times the cosine of a. And the cosine of a is the cosine of angle A, which is 114 degrees. So as you can see here, all I have done is substituted in. You can actually put this into your calculator exactly as it's written. Okay, you just have to be careful, especially if you are using an iPad calculator, that you use parentheses to close what you're subtracting there. And if you do that, you should be basically able to say, put into your calculator 23 squared plus 26 squared minus parentheses 2 times 23 times 26 times, if you're doing an iPad calculator, you'll have to do 114 cosine. If you're using Desmos calculator, you'd use cosine of 114. Close that parentheses, hit enter, and if you do it correctly, and again, put it into your calculator and practice it, because if you don't, you're not going to know if you're doing it correctly. If you do it correctly, you should get a squared equals 1,691.5. So pause the video if you need to, practice putting it in there, and make sure that you're getting a squared equals 1691.5. Of course, we don't want a squared, we want a, so we need to actually take the square root of that, and we'd get that a equals 41.1. Okay, so your steps are written here on the left. Everything that you have to do to substitute in is shown example on how to do it. And in the last step, just make sure you don't forget to actually take the square root. Okay, so what I want you to do is try it on your own. Okay, I'll get you started here. Okay, so we have C, oops daisies, I didn't mean to do that. I wanted to highlight, not C is 135. Okay, B is 8, and A is 15. Okay, so start by writing down what you know, that A is 15, B is 8, C is 135 degrees, angle C is 135 degrees. Think about which formula you want to use. Well, if you're finding C, okay, we would want to use the formula that has C all by itself. So we would want to use C squared equals A squared plus B squared minus 2 times A times B times the cosine of C. So we would want to use that one to make it easier. Okay, so pause the video, take a minute, write all your substitutions down. When you get done, make sure you raise your hand or come see Mrs. Kreifels or Miss Valley. We will check your substitution and we will check your answer to make sure that you're doing it correctly. Okay, you can also use the law of cosines to find an angle. Okay, so we're going to do the exact same thing. And if you notice, this one is got side, side, side. All three sides are given to you. And we always want to figure out what we know. All right, well, let's zoom in here. And I know angle A is 12 degrees. Or excuse me, side A is 12 degrees. And we don't know angle A. Side A is 12 degrees. Side C is 20. And side B is 27. Okay, so we can write that down. And again, I know that which one goes with which because we are looking opposite of it. So, oops, opposite of B is side B. Opposite of A is side A. And opposite of C is side C. So we can look at our substitution here. I can say that I know write down my given information. A is 12, B is 27, and C is 20. And again, it's asking us to find angle B. So we look at our options here, and the one that has angle B in it is the middle one. Oops, I meant to highlight there, not right. The one that has angle B in it is the middle one. So let's write down that formula. Okay, so we're going to have B squared equals A squared plus C squared minus 2AC times the cosine of B. Okay, well, it's asking us to find angle B, so let's go ahead and we're going to substitute in. All right, so I have B is 27, so I'm going to say 27 squared equals A is 12, so I'd have 12 squared plus C squared, well, C is 20 squared, minus 2A times C would be times 12 times C, which is 20, times the cosine of B. Sorry, had a little glitch in there. I had to come back and record some stuff here. So times the cosine of B. So now we have our whole formula with all of our substitutions in it, and we just need to go ahead and evaluate all of those. So, all right, here we go. 27 squared. 27 squared is 729. 12 squared is 144. 20 squared is 400. Minus 2 times 12 times 20 is 480 times the cosine of B. Okay, at the end of the day, what we want to do is we want to get the cosine of B all by itself. Okay, so we're just going to do some basic algebra from here, and I know that I can combine my like terms right here. So I'm going to have 729 equals, if I put 144 and 400 together, I get 544 minus 480 times the cosine of B. Again, we want to get the cosine of B all by itself. Okay, so let's do that. If I wanted it by itself, I would need to subtract 544 from both sides. If I do that, I would get 185 equals negative 480 times the cosine of B. Still on that path here, we want to get the cosine of B all by itself. So I would need to divide out the negative 480. And I would get 185 over negative 480 equals the cosine of B. Now I have the cosine of B all by itself. Well, if you remember, when we needed to find an angle measure, we needed to use the inverse. So I'm going to know that the angle B is going to be the inverse cosine of my ratio, which is 185 over negative 480. And when I put that into my calculator, I get that B is 112.7 degrees. And again, make sure you're putting this stuff into your calculator every time so that you know if you're doing it correctly, even though I'm doing all the calculating with you. Okay, so we wrote down what our information was. Here's our formula we used. We just substituted in, okay? A little bit of algebra. Combine like terms. Get the cosine of B all by itself. Once we get to here, we are using the inverse to find the angle. Okay, so once we do that, we get that the 112.7 degrees. And again, we should always go back and make sure our answer makes sense. So angle B is definitely obtuse, so it's going to be a little bit more than 90, and 112 would be an answer that makes sense. Okay, so if you're not getting your calculator to answer correctly like you want it to, let us know. Miss Valley or I can look at your substitutions. But if you don't have any of this work right here written down, I cannot help you. So which means you need to have your work shown, okay? You can't just put everything directly into the calculator. The calculator does a lot of work for you, but not everything, okay? So make sure you're showing your work on these problems, please. Okay, I showed you how to do one. Now I want you to go ahead and try another one on your own. Just like last time, I will get you started to make sure you know where you're going a little bit. First thing we do, let's look at our picture, make sure we have everything highlighted like we're supposed to. I know that angle A and side A, so I know that A equals 4. Okay, I know that B, oops, wanted to highlight that, B equals 6, so I know that B equals 6, and I know that C equals 5, so I have C equals 5. And then we look at, all right, well, which formula do I need to use? I need to find angle A. Well, if I need to find angle A, the only one that has angle A in it is the top one. So let's go ahead and get our first couple of steps done together here. What do we know? I know that A equals 4. I know that B equals 6. And I know that C equals 5. Okay, and then from there, we decided we needed to use that top formula in order to find A. So I'm going to go ahead and write down that formula, which is A squared equals B squared plus C squared minus 2BC times the cosine of A. Okay, and from there, all we're going to do, anywhere you see an A, daisies, anywhere you see, I meant to do that in red, anywhere you see an A, your side length A, you're going to put a 4. Anywhere you see a B, you're going to put a 6. Anywhere you see a C, you're going to put a 5. And again, once you substitute, you're going to combine those like terms, and ultimately at the end of the day, what we want to get is the cosine of A all by itself. So when you get finished and have all of this work here shown to show what you got for an answer, let me or Mrs. Valley know, and we will come by and do a quick check on it for you. Okay, good luck. And the homework that you need to do is in Schoology. It's not big ideas. It's called Law of Cosines, and I think there are 10 or 12 questions on there. I only want you to do the odds. I know each one of these problems takes a little while, so you only have to do, I think 3 of them ask you to find side lengths and 2 of them ask you to find angle measures. So please complete the odds and then submit back into Schoology. Under Law of Cosines. Please let me know if you have any questions.